the radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this, I don't know what day it is. I have no idea. Well, it's actually Thursday, October 26th. I am doing the show from Brussels, from the airport hotel in Brussels. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate it. Very last minute. I apologize for that. I haven't done a show in forever. I know some of you are going through withdrawal, and I appreciate your patience. I apologize. It's just been this roller coaster ride through Europe. A lot of adventures, a lot of events. I thought what I'd do is I would start us off with kind of a quick update on how things are going on the road here in Europe, what I've been doing, what I've been up to, some adventures, road trips kind of stuff. So let you know, and maybe give some time for people to join the show. I'd appreciate if those of you who are on maybe Twitter or Facebook, just go off there and just let the world know we're back on live, so people can come and benefit from this in real time and live and so on. So Iron Meerkat is dealing with withdrawal by listening to Ben Shapiro. I'm sorry, Iron. I'm sorry, Iron Meerkat. I'm sorry you're having to go through that. I apologize. God, it makes me really question my priorities. Having you guys listen to Ben Shapiro too much, that can be good for you, can be healthy. All right, actually, Ben Shapiro's been pretty good on the Israel thing at least, so he's one of the few people out there who actually has done and said some good things. Let's see, Jonathan, thank you, really appreciate the support. Jonathan got us rolling with some sticker support, so I appreciate that, thanks. God, when was the last time we did a show? Did we do a show from like Tbilisi? So I did. I was in Tbilisi, Georgia, as always, phenomenal. But they kept me. God, they kept me busy. 5 events in 2 days, 3 events on the Friday, 2 events on the Saturday. I can't remember when we talked. So I can't remember if I told you about the event. So Friday, an event in front of the Bankers Association with some 30 bankers in the audience. Talked about, what did we talk about? Morality of finance. And then we went to university. We talked about happiness. Happiness, that was a good talk. I did a good talk on happiness. Yeah, I streamed it. You guys have it. You guys saw it. All right, so we haven't done a show since then. So talk about happiness. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Pretty good. Nice, small group, but good audience. Then the evening had about 80 people. For a talk on selfishness, on the virtue of selfishness. Again, 8 out of 10 Friend Hopper gives me. God, 8 out of 10? 8.5 at least. All right, and then the virtue of selfishness talk, that I should get at some point, and I'll upload it. It was good talk on the virtue of selfishness. That one I think really went well. Then the next morning at Students for Liberty Regional Conference, there were about 200 people. And I did my capitalism, morality of capitalism talk. That's a 10 out of 10. Morality of capitalism is a 10 out of 10. That was great. That was about 170 students, all young people. Everybody in the audience, young people. It's great. Introduced them to Objectivism. That was exciting. And then, in the evening, and this one I uploaded as well, I did the talk on the Israeli-Hamas war at the Israel House in Tbilisi. They do a lot of kind of, public PR for Israel. So that was Saturday. And look, I would have wanted to do shows then, but every time I got back to the hotel, first of all, Tbilisi is like, it's 2 hours from here, so it's 8 hours from the East Coast. So finding the right time zone was really, really difficult. I see the video is going. Is your video okay? Let me know if the video is okay. So finding the right time zone was really, really difficult. And then I was just exhausted, doing all the talks, schmoozing with people in between, and then going out to dinner with our hosts, getting hotel really, really late. Anyway, that was pretty difficult. So is video going in and out? Is this an issue? Can you guys comment? Just one blip. Okay. Hopefully it'll hold up. Let's see what else. Yes, that was Tbilisi. And Sunday, I flew to Amsterdam. That was an adventure. Okay, so I flew to Amsterdam. So at the Tbilisi airport, I check in to get my boarding pass because I couldn't get it online. So I check in to get my boarding pass on Georgia Air, and then in Vienna, I'm switching to Austria Air, and she can only give me a boarding pass for the Georgia Air. They can't give me a boarding pass for the Austrian Air, even though it's one ticket. And then she sees my bag and she says, "Oh, let's weigh that." I weighed that. She says, "Way too heavy. You can't carry it onto the plane." I said, "No, I have to carry it onto the plane. If I check it, it won't make it to Amsterdam." He said, "No, of course it'll make it to Amsterdam." She puts a sticker and she shows me, "See, it's to Amsterdam. It's going all the way to Amsterdam." I say, "Fine, what am I going to do?" Anyway, of course, the suitcase doesn't get to Amsterdam. It stays in Vienna. And I've got an air tag on it, so I can track it. I can see it, and I see it. It's in Terminal 1 in Vienna. And I'm like filling out the form online. I've lost my bag. I'm calling Austrian Airlines. "Oh, don't worry, it'll get." I say, "Look, I'm only going to be here a day. I need the bag because I'm going to be hopping around Europe. You got to get me the bag." This is a good story. Be patient with me. This is a good story. Tell you everything you need to know about Austrian Air, everything you need to know about bureaucracy and craziness. Anyway, so you say, "No problem. We'll get you the thing." So next morning, I see the bag is still in Terminal 1 in Vienna. So I call them up and I say, "Why is it on the plane?" "Oh, we're going to put it on a plane. Oh, and on their website it shows we're still looking for your bag. We haven't found it yet." So I'm saying, "I know where it is." So I say, "Okay, we found it. We're going to put it on the plane this evening to Amsterdam." I said, "Why are you putting it on the plane this evening? There are like 3 planes during the day. Why don't you put it on one of the planes during the day so I can get it today?" No. It has to go. We've already got it booked. It's going to go on the one this evening." I say, "Okay, but will I get it before 8 a.m. tomorrow morning? Because 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, I have to go and get another plane. I'm flying to Copenhagen." "No problem. It'll definitely, there's no question you'll get it before 8 a.m. I say, "Fine." So I'm tracking the thing all day, and I'm off to an event. I'll talk about the event in a little bit, which was pretty good. And I look at it, which was very good. And I look at my phone and I say, "Oh, look, it's on the flight." I see it getting on the flight. I see the bag landing in Amsterdam. I see it downloaded in Amsterdam. And then nothing happens. It's just there, right? And, I call them up. And I say, "Oh, don't worry. We promise it's going to get to you at 8 a.m. in the morning." All right. So by the end of the event, it's like not leaving wherever it is in the Amsterdam airport. So the host of the event drives me to the airport. We go to the airport. I go and I go to 5 different desks to figure out how to get into the baggage claim area where my suitcase is being stored. Finally get to the guy, and he says, "All right, I need your passport." I said, "I don't have my passport. I just did an event. I don't carry my passport around." He said, "I can't shelter you in without." "Here's my driver's license." He said, "I can't give you your passport, otherwise I'm not going to." I said, "Look, 8 a.m. He says, "I can't do anything. Sorry." By this time, Austrian Air offices are closed. Can't call them. Can't tell them. But they promised me it'll be there by 8 a.m. So I go by my hotel, and I figured, okay, I'll get up at 6, I'll go to the airport, and I'll pick it up myself, because it's not going to get here by 8 a.m. And then I'm like dreading, I'm going to the airport, and my bag is on the way to the hotel, and I'm dreading like I'm just going to miss it. Anyway, I get to the airport, I convince the guy to let me in. I have a passport this time. He lets me in. I go to the office where my bag is supposed to be, and it's closed. They only open at 8. My flight's at 10. So I say, okay. So I stand there, hang out there. I don't want to go out because who knows if they'll ever let me back in. So I stand there until 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, the guy shows up. He takes it a while to get organized, boot up the computers, get everything going. And I said to him, look, my bag, it's here. Here's my air tag. I know it's here somewhere. And I was promised that it would be delivered to me by 8. And what's going on? And he says, well, let's go find it. I say, cool, okay, let's go find it. So he takes me to this room filled with bags. Like there's bags everywhere, right? And he says, it's here somewhere. And he says, I don't know where it is. And he says, in the AirTag on the app, you can make a sound. So make a sound and we'll find it. So I ding the thing and we hear beep, 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 beep. Like do it again and we find my suitcase. Fantastic, take the suitcase out. I sign a thing that I took my suitcase and I get on my plane and I fly to Copenhagen. We'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, yesterday, I'm in Montenegro. This is, 3 days later, 2 days later, 3 days later. I get a phone call from Austrian Air. And they say, look, we're ready to deliver your bag. Are you still at the hotel? And I started laughing. I said, no, I'm not at the hotel. You were supposed to deliver this at 8 a.m. 3 days ago. What happened? And he said, I don't know, but we're ready to deliver the bag to your hotel right now. I said to him, are you sure you have my bag? He says, what do you mean? I says, I've got my bag here in Montenegro. What are you going to deliver to me exactly? He says, oh, you have your bag. No worries. Have a good day. Slams the phone down. I mean, the incompetence is just unbelievable. By the way, Vienna is a death trap for suitcases. So Jonathan, who works for the Institute, was traveling with me. He checked the bag in from Montenegro to Brussels through Vienna, and it was stuck in Vienna. He's at the airport right now trying to find it. It's 11 o'clock at night. 11 o'clock at night here. Don't check a bag if you're flying through Vienna. Okay, so my 2 worst airports in the entire world, 2 worst airports, don't connect through these airports if you can help it. Number 1, holding at number 1, still the worst export experience in the world is still Frankfurt, Germany. If you can help it, don't travel through Frankfurt, Germany. The Z400 racer says, you should have let them deliver it. I should have, and then they would have not found it, and then I would have said, I never got my bag, and I would have demanded that they pay me for all the clothes and everything, and that would have compensated me a little bit for the hassle generated by the incompetence. I mean, they literally had my bag for hours and didn't do anything with it. 3 days later, Frankfurt is the worst. The worst. Second worst now is Vienna. Vienna never used to be on my worst airports list. It has now risen to number 2. So Frankfurt, Vienna, 2 airports to avoid. Just that, by the way, is worth $100 super chat. Just that advice, because it'll save you such heartache if you can avoid those 2 airports. I'm telling you, that is worth it. All right, what else do we have? All right, so that was Amsterdam. So in Amsterdam, a local objectivist arranged a talk for me in the Gouda is how you pronounce it, Gouda City Hall. This is a city hall, hundreds of years old. And Gouda is, it's known for cheese, Gouda cheese. Most of you know it as Gouda. Gouda, you don't pronounce it Gouda, Gouda. And it's a pretty little city, pretty little downtown, really nice, beautiful cathedral. You know I hate cathedrals, but still beautiful stained glass. And then, anyway, they organized this talk, invited a bunch of their colleagues and work relations. You know, a lot of people came, but most importantly, they invited a local school for really bright students who were failing and falling out and not doing well in public schools. A private school dedicated to smart kids who don't do well in public schools. So they came, and I gave a talk on heroism and on being the hero of your own life. And first time I've given this talk, never given this talk before, and it came out really, really good. So I'm really, really pleased with the talk. I'll upload it as well, and it'll go up. And I think the kids loved it. They were really engaged. I think a number of them are going to read Ayn Rand as a consequence. I thought the event was really fabulous and got a lot of good feedback from it. We had a reception, we had a dinner. So it was a whole shebang and really, really good. But again, it meant that I got to the hotel really, really late, couldn't do a show. Next day was Copenhagen. Flew to Copenhagen. I did a podcast interview. I did an interview with one of the leading newspapers, the leading kind of right-wing newspaper in Denmark. So, and then I did a talk interview at CIPOS. CIPOS is the big free market think tank in Copenhagen. And again, they had a good turnout, a mixture of older people and young people, but quite a good group of young people. It was a great event. Well attended, good questions, and the guy with me was really good. The guy who interviewed me was really, really good. Good relationship now with CIPOS, hoping to do more events with them in the future. Then we went out to dinner with him, and again, got to the hotel room. It was really late. I was super exhausted. Next morning, early in the morning, we flew to Montenegro. I got picked up there, had a meeting with a rector, that's the president of the university, who's a huge free market guy, loves Ayn Rand. He calls it a liberal university. It teaches free market ideas, and Ayn Rand is taught in several of their classes. Montenegro, of all places. And then I gave a talk, about 200 kids. I don't think the talk went very well for some reason. I wasn't crazy about how the talk went. It was about entrepreneurship. Partially the audience was a little flat, not responsive, not engaged as much as I'd like. But 200 people, I got to guess that we impacted some people. A number of them said that they took a lot of notes, which is a good sign, I guess. Anyway, from Montenegro, really, this morning, got a very early flight this morning, flew to Brussels. I rented a car in Brussels, drove to Maastricht in the Netherlands, gave a talk at the University of Maastricht. I was a little disappointed by the number of people who were there, probably about 35, 40. But the talk was great. I mean, first of all, it's my morality of capitalism talk, the free market revolution talk. It's really good. You know, I've nailed it. I've got it down. You can tell when an audience is really engaged and really there. It's a 10 out of 10 talk. It just is, it's just a good talk. It's just a good, complete, nice unit. It works. It's excellent. And I think we got a number of people in the audience to read Atlas Shrugged and to read Ayn Rand and to be engaged. So that was a success. Definitely a significant success. Anyway, drove back, and I figured I haven't done one of these shows in so long. I better do one today, because otherwise you guys will just abandon me. I'm already seeing just by the number of super chats so far that you guys kind of lost interest and moved on, and Yaron's gone AWOL on us, and so we won't do anything. Anyway, that's been the tour so far. Tomorrow I'm doing a debate. So those of you who live in London, I hope you can make this. It's a debate on the National Health Service. Links available, I think, on the website. There's a Facebook page for this. Hopefully you can attend. I'm trying to fill that room. So it's a debate between me and a former member of the British Parliament, an advisor to the Prime Minister, on whether to privatize or just reform the National Health Service. So it should be interesting. This is the National Health Service, which is a religion in the UK, so that should be pretty exciting. Then, what are we doing then? Oh yeah, then I go to Lisbon, and I know a number of you are going to meet me for dinner at Lisbon. So please come to the event. It's a Students for Liberty conference. I'm giving a talk on, philosophy of innovation, technology, something like that. And then we're going out to dinner with a bunch of objectivists in Lisbon. And then I'm flying back to London to hang out in London for a few days. That's the schedule, almost done. Almost ready to go home. Of course, once I go home, we have a new trip to Chicago, Utah, and Denver. And I might try to see some of you guys in Chicago and Denver. So let me know if you'd like to get together. All right. Let's get on to the news, because that was pretty light, but the mood in my world is pretty heavy. So what is going on in the Israeli in the war in Israeli Hamas war in Gaza? I wish it became more of a war. I mean, everything I predicted. Many of you made fun of me. Many of you ridiculed my views. Many of you said, no. Netanyahu's a good guy. He's powerful. But the reality is, Barry, the talk in Utah is in Salt Lake City at Utah State or University of Utah at the law school. It's a Federalist Society. No, not the law school. The business school. I think it's the Adam Smith Society. Information should be available on my website under events, or the Institute's website under events. But mine, it certainly should be there. And if it's not, it will be there in a few days. So check it out. It's open to the public, but it is being put on in the business school by the Adam Smith Society. Anyway, what does I want to say? As I predicted, Netanyahu's slow. He's not reacting. The ground invasion has been delayed almost 3 weeks. It'll be 3 weeks on Saturday. The world has decidedly turned against Israel. You've got even the United States and other countries calling for a ceasefire, so that humanitarian aid can enter. The whole point of this is to penalize the Palestinians. There shouldn't be any humanitarian aid entered. They should suffer the consequences of supporting Hamas. They should suffer the consequences of the ideology that they support and the political entity that they have chosen to lead them and supported in leading them. But no, the world wants humanitarian aid. The world wants peace negotiations. The world wants a ceasefire. I mean, in the week after the world was with Israel, the world would have tolerated a lot. All of that is gone. That goodwill is gone. That sense of this is self-defense is gone. Now it's just going to be Israel victimizing the Palestinians. So Israel's waiting. Why is it waiting? It's waiting because the United States wants it to wait because they're negotiating for prisoner release, and the Israelis are negotiating for prisoner release through the Qataris, and who of course host Hamas, so they're in a position to negotiate. We'll get to Qatar in a minute, but it's a travesty. I told you from day one, Israel should function as if the hostages are dead. It should do whatever it can to save them militarily. No, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 of Benjamin Netanyahu's book on terrorism. Never negotiate with terrorism. I think that's his chapter heading. Never negotiate with terrorism. All he's done as a prime minister is negotiate with terrorists. So, nothing's really happening. It turns out that even within the Israeli government, there is a massive conflict between Netanyahu, his defense minister, and Gantz, General Gantz, who joined the coalition and is in the war cabinet. They believed a week ago that Israel should enter Gaza by land. Netanyahu insists Israel's not ready and needs to wait. Again, so one reason to wait is the Americans. Hostage negotiations. Second reason to wait, Americans. They're moving more, missile defense systems into the Middle East to provide cover for Israel and for the American bases. And they want Israel to wait before the ground offensive, before they have the Patriot missiles and the other types of missiles in place. And then Netanyahu believes that the IDF, the Israeli military, is not ready yet to enter Gaza. They need more time. They need more planning. The IDF thinks they're ready. The defense minister thinks they're ready. Former commanders of the Israeli military, Gantz, thinks they're ready. But Netanyahu, the coward, I think we should just call him the coward, insists they're not. Delay, 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 delay. Morale is dropping. Morale, which in the days after the horrors of October 7th was, these Israeli soldiers were ready. They were ready to go in, ready to do what's necessary, committed, focused. Morale is low because they expect it to be in already. And I think what's happening with this time, and I think this has always been the case with Netanyahu, in spite of the talk, we're going to destroy Hamas, we're going to uproot it, we're going to change the framework of the Middle East, this will be remembered for generations. Talk. Of course it's Netanyahu holding it back. Stop defending Netanyahu. He's always been a coward, and he still is a coward. He's been a terrible prime minister for Israel, maybe its worst ever. And he continues to be that. He is a coward, if only because he won't stand up to the United States. But it's not the United States holding it back. Every indication from every publication I read coming out of Israel suggests that the military and the defense minister wanted to go in a week ago, and it is Netanyahu who is stopping them. And look, I told you day one, day two, I told you that this would not happen fast. I told you it should happen fast, but it would not happen fast. This is before the United States. I just know Netanyahu. So it's like Trump fever. When people love Netanyahu and love Trump, they'll justify anything they do. He's playing 4D chess with Hamas. Anyway, Israel today did what's called a deep excursion into Gaza in a particular area in the north. They seem to be setting the ground for an ultimately ground invasion into the Gaza. The clearing trails for the tanks and for the personnel carriers. And I think that probably in the next 2 to 3 days, you will see a significant military incursion into the Gaza Strip. Will it be significant and robust enough to wipe out Hamas? I doubt it. I think that before that goal is achieved, Netanyahu and the Israeli cabinet will agree to some kind of ceasefire, will agree to some kind of compromise. Will Israel destroy Hamas? Will they kill the political leaders in Qatar? Will they do everything that's necessary? I still think the answer is no. And believe me, it really, really, really saddens me to say so. I've been arguing that this was the action necessary for 20 years. 20 years, and I've got videos to prove it, right? You can go see my 2003 talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And they continue to do what I expect them to do and to disappoint me. They continue to kick the can down the road. Continue not to do what is necessary. Now, part of the compromise is that Israel has agreed not to preemptively strike the Hezbollah in Lebanon. I also told you in the first few days that Israel had a window of opportunity to take the strategic high ground, take an element of surprise, if you will, and crush the Hezbollah and the Iranians in Syria. Israel's poking them. Bombs here, bombs there, artillery fire here, artillery fire there, kill a few people here, kill a few people there, all Hezbollah members, poking holes in the airport in Aleppo and the airport in Damascus, so the Iranians can't resupply Hezbollah. How long is that going to work for? Total destruction is what Israel should inflict on Hezbollah and inflict on any Iranian and Hezbollah troops in Syria and Lebanon. But it won't. And again, the Americans have asked it not to. By the way, the American military, those really, really smart guys who've won every war since World War II, I mean, they've won them all. They're so good. The American military is skeptical about Israel's ability to fight a two-front war. I am not skeptical about their ability. And I doubt the Americans know what they're talking about. All right. By the way, if you have questions for me, please use the super chat. I see a bunch of people asking questions. Please use the super chat to ask the questions. That way it highlights them. I see them. All you need is like $2 or $4 or $10 or $100 or 50 like Jackson here to do it. So you can do it at any price, but please use that if you want a response from me. So I will respond to every single question in the super chat. I will not respond to questions in the chat. It's just too distracting. And by the way, we do have goals that we need to reach. We do need to reach our monthly goal, and I don't have a lot of days to do it. So I do appreciate us achieving our goal for today, which is $650, or maybe exceeding it. So where was I? Yeah, so Israel is not preempting in Lebanon. It's not preempting in Syria. The Americans have promised that it will do what it needs to do to help defend Israel in terms of at least knocking down the missiles. And of course, the heart of the problem is Iran. Iran is behind all of this. Iran has been supplying Hamas, funding Hamas from day one, or for years now. We all know that. Hezbollah reports directly to Iran. Iran, in a sense, created the Hezbollah. Iran has troops in Syria ready to attack Israel when the time comes, or at least launch missiles towards Israel. Missiles launched from the Houthis in Yemen towards Israel that the Americans knocked down, guided by Iran. No other way the Houthis could do it, and all those missiles were supplied by the Iranians. So can we find a direct link between what happened on October 7th and an Iranian command to do it? No, I don't have it. The Wall Street Journal claimed that they had it about 2 weeks ago. They ran a story about it. The intelligence agencies are claiming they don't have it, but of course they would claim that because the intelligence agencies don't want to promote a war. But the reality is it doesn't matter. The reality is that Iran is behind this. Whether it supported a particular operation or whether it supports the organization as a whole, the political entity as a whole, what difference does it make? It supplied the weapons. It supplies the inspiration. It supplies the ideology. Hamas is an Islamist organization. It is an organization dedicated to Sharia law. It is an organization dedicated to applying Islam to every aspect of life. This is what makes them such a horrific governing body in Gaza, one of the things, other than they're a death cult in addition. And without taking out Iran, none of this gets solved. None of it gets solved. They'll just find some other people and fund them and start it all over again. Iran has to be taken out. If not now, then in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. At some point they'll have nukes and it'll become really, really hard. Now, I suggested that on Twitter. Oh my God, another hornet's nest. I've been kicking a lot of hornet's nests. It turns out that the libertarian movement is filled with hornet's nests of anti-war, they call themselves. It's like anti-war is the same as anti-racism. It's a what do you call it? It's an anti-concept. Anti-racism is racism. If you remember, Kendi's books about anti-racism. Anti-racism is the promotion of racism. It's the idea that to be an anti-racist, you have to admit that you are a racist. Anti-war, as the libertarians use the term, is ultimately pro-war, because it is meant, and its purpose is, to eliminate the good guys, to eliminate the West's capacity, ability, moral confidence in waging wars of self-defense. All that'll do is embolden the bad guys, Iranians, Russians, Chinese, to engage in more murder of Americans, in more offensive operations. Anti-war movements want to completely eradicate the American state, to basically disassemble it. Anarchy. That means do away with the American military. That means open up America to invasion by anybody. Real invasion, not immigration. Real invasion. So they tell me Iran's not killing Americans. It is. Not in America, but they would if they could. They will when they can. How do I know? How do you know, Yaron? Because they tell us. They used to have a line item in their budget called terrorism. They've killed Americans all over the Middle East. They'll do it in a second if they have an opportunity to do it in America. But we should wait until they slaughter us before we can respond. No, we should eliminate this regime now, quickly, effectively. Not build democracy. You don't need to. In Iran is actually the only country in this region where I think if you eliminated the mullahs, there's actually some liberals who would take over. All those girls, give it to the girls. The girls would take over. All those girls that took off the hijab, challenging the regime. There's actually an opposition in Iran. There wasn't an opposition in Iraq. There was certainly no opposition in Afghanistan. Not viable. Iran has a viable opposition. Give it to them. Destroy their nuclear capacity. Destroy the National Guard. Do it all from the air. Destroy their government facilities. I would even destroy their mosques and Homs, their spiritual center. And then let the girls take over. I don't know. I don't want to nuke the place because I have too much admiration for the people who are fighting for their own freedom in Iran. I mean, I wish in the Gaza Strip there were some brave people fighting against the Hamas. But in Iran they are. So I would want to try to save them. So I would try to destroy all the facilities of the regime, and then let the opposition take over. Yeah, I'm for war. Wars of self-defense. I'm for taking out our enemies. I'm for taking out people who would kill us, who have the intent and the ability and are trying constantly to kill us. I'm not a libertarian who sits at home. Oh, I'll only fight when the terrorist knocks on my door. Well, by then it'll be too late, my friend. Too late. You need to actually preemptively defend yourself. That means finding the people who want to kill you, killing them first. Oh, so I'm talking about the Iran war. All right, so I'm pretty sure now Iran has been attacking Iranian militias in Iraq and in Syria have been attacking U.S. forces. 29 American soldiers were injured on a military base. What's the United States going to do? I think we can confidently say that the answer to that is nothing. That is going to embolden the Iranians, make them more aggressive, make it more likely that they attack U.S. positions. And the answer can't be, we'll bring all the troops home, okay? We'll bring all the troops home, which I support generally, which, by the way, Trump promised he would do and never did. And then what? The Iranians chase us home? Oh, so then we should build a wall and ban all Muslim immigrants and ban all Muslim tourists and build a wall on the southern border. Ooh, but they might come in from Canada. So let's build a wall on the Canadian border. And then we can hunker down. And we can each create a basement, a bomb shelter. And we can go in there and I don't know, surround ourselves with guns and pretend that life is normal while we shiver in fear and stick our head in the sand as we wait for the Iranians to show up. God. So no, there will be no attack against Iran. Israel's going to miss the opportunity to completely destroy Hezbollah. And they won't even do what's necessary to Hamas. They won't. So we sit here and wait. The ground operation will start soon. And let me just say about war. The other thing everybody tells me is I'm an old man who's sitting at home, eager to send young men to die in battle. Two things I have to say about that. One is, I've actually been to war. I fought as a young man in a war of self-defense, which I completely support, that war. Been there, done that. It's time for the young generation to defend itself. I'm not sending anybody to war, but I'm actively advocating for one. I used to think if they fought the wars the way I argue wars should be fought, very few Americans need to die. The only reason we lost so many young kids in Iraq and Afghanistan was because of the way they chose to fight. Second, nobody has talked more about the deaths of young American soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq than I have. Nobody has bemoaned that more. Nobody has been more angry about it than I have. I haven't seen libertarian commentaries talking about that. They talk about the evil American state. They talk about the evil of wars and abstraction. But how many of them talk about the soldiers, the kids? You remember all the movie reviews I've done? Oh, the movie reviews. That movie review about that station in Afghanistan. The horrors of how America treated its own soldiers. How they led them to death. Nobody's talked more about that. And even with the war right now, who's talked more about how difficult this is going to be in Gaza? About how many Israeli kids are going to die? Even in the Ukrainian-Russian war, I've reminded you over and over again, that kids are dying there. Russian kids, Ukrainian kids, dying for nothing. Ukraine defended itself, but on a war for nothing. For the mystical vision of an old man. Talk about an old man with a mystical vision. Nobody out there cares more about the young kids and talks about it more, about the young kids who are going to be in battle and going to suffer and going to die and going to be maimed than I have. So the injustice of, throwing these accusations around is horrible by people who really don't care. Who don't care if terrorist attacks happen in the United States, who don't care if Americans are killed by Iranians, who don't care. And by the way, there was a tweet. You remember I said at some point they hate Israel because Israel has taxes? And they resent the Israeli state so much because of taxes that they think it's morally equivalent to Hamas? One of these libertarians literally wrote that about the American. He said, yeah, the Iranians don't tax me, so I don't care about the Iranians. I care about my government. I hate my government. My government is the one that uses force against me. So I hate my government more than I hate Iran. That's because you don't live in Iran. But so they prove my point. They equivocate. They see no difference between a regime dedicated to murder, a regime dedicated to annihilation, a regime dedicated to totalitarianism, and the American or Israeli governments. And people who can't see the difference between Iran, Russia, even Saudi Arabia, and Israel and the United States, God, that's pathetic. That is truly pathetic. Hey, if you're missing out on all this fun, It's all on Twitter. You should follow me on Twitter, and you'll be in on these conversations. Yeah, the movie I was thinking was The Outpost. Thank you, Kudababa. Oh, we've got some idiots here who want to distort and pervert everything I've said about immigration and stuff. Yeah, what the hell? There's always somebody out there. All right, I want to say something about Qatar. So I've talked about Qatar. I've talked about it before. I've talked about the fact that the United States has a massive military base in Qatar. I've talked about the fact that CENTCOM, the Central Command of the entire Middle East, is based in Qatar. The United States is heavily invested in Qatar. And at the same time, the Qatari regime is friendly to the Iranians, our enemy, was a funder of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, killing Americans. And while our airplanes took off from Qatari airport to bomb ISIS, Qatari money was flowing to ISIS to support them. And that we did nothing about this, and still do nothing about it. Qatar is a funder and support of Hamas, a funder and support of Hezbollah. It is a way for the Iranians to fund their money, and it gets American support completely. John, I'm just saying this about the chat. John, you're a liar. You really should stop lying. You know, there's something about lying that's inappropriate, so stop. In addition to this, and yet America continues to support it, and Israel uses Qatar to negotiate with Hamas, which is an abomination, a moral abomination. Then add to that what I read recently, which is that Qatar has spent tens of billions of dollars on funding American universities, on getting American universities to open branches in Qatar. Qatar has a university center where American universities have established campuses. There's no free speech in Qatar. Zero free speech in Qatar. And in American universities are teaching in Qatar as if it's a normal country. Why is that? Because Qatar has written massive checks to American universities. It's not just universities. It's lawyers, lobbyists, it's political campaigns, indirectly, of course. It's hosting American politicians. In other words, the Qatar have a massive lobbying operation in Washington. They spend a huge amount of money on it, and nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to care. Oh, this is good. So John is revealing himself fully, which is fabulous. I love this. He says the problem is the global homos and the neo-Cohens. In other words, John is just a homophobic anti-Semite. All right, cool. Now we know exactly who he is. I love it when they just tell you. Like, he's an anti-Semite, and he's obsessed and afraid of homosexuality. All right, that's cool. We know who he is now. All right, let's see. We're about halfway to our goal. We're still about $300 short of our goal. I know I haven't done as many shows as I usually do, but I've been traveling, speaking, I think, all of our benefits. So part of your support today and every day supports not just this show, but also my traveling, my speaking, the connections I make all over the world to promote these ideas. So please consider using a sticker or a super chat to support the show and to support my activities. We have 175 people watching right now live. We're short about $300. So $2 from everybody right now as a sticker would actually get us to our target pretty quickly. And that would be great. And it would be great. A lot of you who are listening right now maybe have never supported the Yaron Brook Show. So please do so. It's an opportunity through the Super Chat to support the Yaron Brook Show, to support the activities, to support what I do. Please join in supporting that. So go for it. Let's see. Okay, talk about Qatar, talk about the Iran war. I've given you a war update, not much to update, although we'll see what happens in the next few days. All right, let's jump to your Super Chat questions. We've got a few of them, not many, and as I said, we're short about $300, so please consider supporting, particularly if you're new, particularly if you're one of the 175 people who haven't, of the 178 people now, who haven't supported the show in the past. Oh, I did want to comment one other thing about the war. The war has done more to reveal the complete insanity of the left on campus and their explicit anti-Semitism than anything before this. And we're not talking about a handful of professors or a handful of students. We're not talking about marches because a black man is killed by police, where, you could talk about police brutality, so there's some rationalization for it. But on American campuses now, there are thousands, tens of thousands more of students and thousands of faculty members who are actively arguing in support of Hamas, who will not condemn Hamas's actions, who will not just equate it with Israel, but make Hamas blameless and blame it all on Israel. It's much worse than even I expected it would be. The numbers are staggering. The amount of media they're getting is scary. The number of people out in the streets marching for Hamas is truly unbelievable. The number of Hamas flags we see everywhere is stunning. I mean, this is a government, an organization that commanded its people to rape, torture, kill babies, kill little girls, little children, behead some of them, slaughter civilians, as many as possible, take hostages, treat the hostages badly. And yet, on American campuses today, by both students and professors, they're getting a free ride. And we're not talking about, again, a few professors here, a few students' organizations there. We saw the letter from Harvard, 33 student organizations. But it's lots of universities. It's lots of places. They're out in the streets. They have no shame. They're marching. They're demonstrating. They're in class. And professors are telling, in class, they're telling, in a classroom, they're saying, if you support Israel, go sit in the corner. Think about what you've done. Israel, not the Hamas. The level of anti-Semitism, the level of hatred towards Jews, I really didn't think I'd see it in my lifetime. I knew it was there. I always knew it was possible. It's part of why I justify the existence of Israel even today. I never thought I'd see it like this. The vitriol, the anti-Semitic vitriol, it's on my chat right now. This Cooper guy is expressing it. Never thought I'd see it. Never thought it would happen in America in my lifetime. And here it is. And it's not just in America. It's in London. 100,000 people marched in London. Pro-Hamas. It's in every city in Europe, every major city in Europe. And it's not just Muslims. That's bad enough that it would be Muslims. It's British kids, European kids. I mean, in America, it's even some Jews. it's hard to fathom how bad the anti-Semitism is and how vicious it is, how accepted it is. And I don't know, it's hard for me to, the shock and the disappointment and the sadness that this is evoking, it's hard for me to express. You know, anti-Semitism is the hallmark of barbarism. It's the hallmark of tribalism. It's the hallmark of the end of civilization. It's a return to pre-enlightenment in the most crudest sense. And yeah, I mean, look at John Cooper. He's calling them neo-Cohens, right? He's an anti-Semite. He's a barbarian. He's talking about the IQ of people in Gaza and the IQ of Jews. I mean, he probably has an IQ of my socks. Anti-Semites are usually pretty stupid. And certainly very immoral. It's anti-Semitism and altruism. It's the consequence of the tribalism that we've experienced. And it's dominantly on the left, but it's also on the right. You can see the vitriol against Ben Shapiro from his own followers, not from the left, from his own followers. I mean, I never thought I would feel bad for Ben Shapiro. But he writes sensible things, even pretty moderate things. And he gets crushed, called horrible, ugly names. Because he's Jewish. Because he's pro-Israel. It's truly horrific. And it's very discouraging. And it's going to be interesting to see how we deal with it. I mean, there was a ABC News had on its show this woman called Lindsay Davis. Lindsay Davis will not condemn Hamas. She has no empathy for deliberately murdered Jewish babies, raped little girls, and slaughtered civilians. Even when she's asked explicitly, will show no empathy for that. And it's not like she cares about the Palestinian people. She doesn't, just like Hamas doesn't. She is a horrible anti-Semite, a horrible human being, this anti-human life. And yet ABC gives her airtime. She's not too controversial. ABC won't interview me, but they'll interview this barbarian. Now, what makes her newsworthy is that she was denied a job because of her comments on the Israeli-Hamas conflict. Good. Maybe American businesses can discipline these idiots. Idiots is too nice of a word. These immoral people. But a lot of these kids are losing their jobs. That's good. But they're not getting kicked out of the university. They're not being disciplined. Imagine on a university, you said something racist against a recognized minority in the U.S., not against what do you call it? Not against Jews. That's acceptable. But some blacks, Hispanics, something like that, gays. Imagine you say something racist or anti-gay on campus. You lose your job. Or if you're a student, you get suspended and maybe kicked out of the university. It's happened many times. But now, on American universities, you can actually actively promote Hamas and nothing happens to you. You can actively promote the killing, maiming, butchering of Jews. Par for the course. Israel's just as bad, so we can't penalize you. Free speech. We're not going to do anything to you. It's Unbelievable. Unbelievable. The duality here. And we talked about this as some donors are figuring this out and stopping to support the alma maters, but not enough. And it's still going on. And the media plays into it because this is the news, so they bring them on television to promote their hatred. It's a disgrace. And I don't know how you recover from this. I mean, all these kids who are pro-Hamas will all go back to class and they'll all graduate and they'll all... But the anti-Semitism is there. And I never thought anti-Semitism would be a program of a governing ideology in the future of America. But who knows now? Who knows? It's good that Israel exists, and it's important, I think, for Jews around the world that Israel continue to exist, because it's the one safety valve they have. It's the one place they can escape to. Because even America, God, even America, it's hard to tell what the future holds. All right, I just had to say that, and God, it's depressing. All right, let's take your questions. So Vadim has basically taken us over, achieved the goal, and over. Thank you, Vadim, at $400 in over 2 questions. So that's fantastic. Really, really appreciate it. Vadim says his first question. Hi, Yaron. Thank you for defending the right of Israel to fight the evil that wants to destroy Jewish people. I hope your family's safe. Yes, they are still safe. Have you had a chance to watch Schwarzenegger's video message? It started strong, but towards the end, the message is very non-specific. Yeah, I mean, I did a few days ago. I can't remember too much. And yes, I mean, it's everybody starts strong. Israel's a good country. It needs to defend itself. And then you get to the but. And then it gets wishy-washy. Because otherwise you're too radical. You're too principled. You're too egoistic. You're too pro-West. You're too pro-civilization. Don't be like that. Ultimately, every culture has something to offer. No. Some cultures has nothing to offer. And the Islamist culture, the culture of Islamic totalitarianism, has zero to offer us. So, yeah, weak, sad. But look, Schwarzenegger is a weakling. We know that. I mean, he was governor of California. He was pathetic. He's huge on climate change. He supports many leftist causes. Vadim also says, Ayn Rand once said that morality is a code of white and black. And to choose gray is always ugly. The gray is moral equivalency. Yes, the gray is moral equivalency. The gray is the refusal to say that Hamas is evil. And Israel's, it's not the epitome of good, but in comparison is good. Evil is not to make moral judgments. Treat everybody the same. Deny that there is good and evil in the world. And sadly, that is exactly what so many people I see online doing. And it's exactly what the so-called anti-war libertarians do. They're not anti-war and they're not pro-liberty. They're pro-war and anti-liberty. It's horrible. But yes, moral grayness is disgusting. And we live in a culture that is afraid to make moral judgments. It's afraid to assert itself. It's afraid to say we're better than the barbarians. And it's the death of Western civilization when Western civilization refuses to stand up for itself and declare its own value. Jackson says, any basis of Douglas MacGregor's argument that America is too vulnerable economically for war against Iran, or that war would involve war with China and Russia? 100% agree the U.S. West has moral obligation for war against Iran. There's nothing, zero zilch in MacGregor and everybody else's panic over war with Iran. What is America afraid of? America should immediately, I mean, imagine if America did this. No ground troops, all from the air. Start bombing Iranian, Republican Guard. Bomb all the oil facilities in Iran. Drive its economy to zero, basically. Now, the price of oil would skyrocket. A war with Iran, price of oil will skyrocket. Can the American economy withstand a price of oil skyrocketing? Absolutely. Maybe we'd end a recession, but not that deep of a recession. Imagine if we bombed every facility with bunker busting, the biggest bombs we had, every facility that we thought might be used for the nuclear program, and if it was so deep that only a nuke could get to it, and it's not near, let's say, a city, use a nuke. Russia is not guaranteed Iran's protection. Russia doesn't want to die. Russia doesn't want to get into nuclear war with the United States. Russia would like Iran to stay the way they are, and Russia knows that it will because it knows America are wimps. But Russia's not going to go to war with America over Iran, neither is China. China would risk its whole plan, its whole projection into the future for Iran. They have no interest in Iran. I mean, again, they'd like Iran to be a thorn in the side of America. Both countries do. But a war with Iran, if prosecuted primarily from the air, would have almost no economic cost to the United States. It would be minimal. I mean, again, the price of oil would be the most dramatic thing. And what we'd have to do is put our Navy into the Persian Gulf to escort ships from Saudi Arabia, from the Emirates, from Kuwait, out of the Gulf Coast so we could get the oil. But we would take Iranian oil off the market by bombing their oil facilities. What's Iran going to do? Now, everybody says Iran's got this mighty army. Iran fought Iraq to stalemate. In an 8-year war, I think it was 8 years, 1 million people died. Stalemate. We beat the Iraqi army like that. It wasn't the Iraqi army was the problem, it was the insurgency. And Iranian people are far friendlier to the United States than the Iraqis were. Far friendlier. And they're ready for a revolution. We could just help them. Wouldn't even take that much. So, no. I mean, everybody always has excuses. Why shouldn't we give the Ukrainians our artillery, the HIMARS? Oh, because that's escalation, and the Russians will use nukes if we do. But then we give the HIMARS to Ukraine, and the Russians do nothing. But we shouldn't give them tanks, because if we give them tanks, the Russians will escalate, and we'll have a nuclear war in our hands. Don't give them tanks. But then we give them tanks, and the Russians don't escalate, and there's no nuclear war. But don't give them F-16s. Can't give them F-16s. Give them F-16s, well, it's World War III, for sure. And then we give them F-16s, and nothing happens. What do we learn from this? Nothing. Zero, zilch. Don't bomb Iran. It'll cause World War III. No, people have no understanding. Douglas MacGregor, all these guys have no understanding of geopolitics. They're experts. They claim to be experts. Many of the people are former military people. They have no understanding of what's going on in the world. No understanding of what motivates people. World War III is nuclear war. Who's going to launch that exactly? Nobody's suicidal. Mutually assured destruction is real. Do the Russians really want to die? Do the Chinese? It's difficult. It's difficult. Russia's not harmless. It's horrible, but it's not going to launch nuclear missiles against us. It might it might make Israel's life more difficult in Syria. Okay. That's about it. And Israel can deal with that. Even that, Israel can deal with. All right, let's see, where are we? Yes, Fend Harper. He says, I greatly admire how much you value spreading objectivism, freedom, and liberty. I appreciate how virtuous you are to that value. Near daily shows, global travel for debate and talks, and soon to be teaching in ARU. I am teaching in ARU. Already done 2 semesters of teaching at ARU. Safe travels. Thank you, Fend Harper. Really appreciate the support, and thank you. Rand Corley, love your work, Yaron. Your moral intransigence is invigorating. Thank you. I appreciate that. Whoops. Let's see. Those were all $50 questions. Thank you. That's great. I've raised the target to $1,000 because we're so close. We might as well get there. So we're only $88 short of that. Okay. Itai asks, as an Israeli before military service, I'm thinking lately about serving in a combat unit instead of Army Intel. I'm studying for a computer science degree. I'm not sure I'll stay in Israel after the service. Does it make sense? I mean, if you're not going to stay in Israel, why? I mean, it's not like you will not provide value by being in military intelligence. You'll provide huge value. It's not like you won't be fighting for your country and defending freedom and liberty in Israel by being in military intelligence. You will. You know, but particularly if you want to leave Israel, do you really want to put your life on the line right now? I don't know. I mean, you have to answer that question. I can't answer it for you. But I certainly don't think of, Army Intel as less. And also beware of the heavy dose of collectivism and guilt and nationalism and kind of, whether it's a real or fake patriotism, that they try and instill in you. Make sure whatever choices you make about the military, you're doing it as an independent thinker based on your own values. Based on your own values. And then decide. Oh, my computer's giving me problems. Okay, PB. Easy to argue for retaliation against Hamas. How can I draw a connection between Iran and specific terror attacks against Israel or U.S. to justify U.S. declaration of war and retaliatory defensive attacks by U.S. against Iran? Well, I mean, the fact that Iran has been involved in terrorist attacks against the United States is well documented in many places, starting with the taking the hostages in the embassy in 1979, the killing of the Marines in their barracks in Beirut, 241 Americans, and then more in the American embassy in Beirut. In 1983, that was a Hezbollah funded and supported by Iran, well documented. Hezbollah is an extension of Iran, well documented. Iran, through Hezbollah, kidnapped multiple Americans in various places in the Middle East, again, particularly in Lebanon, and killed them, well documented. Iran, supported numerous terrorist attacks against Americans in Europe, well documented. Actually, some of that went to court, where people sued Iran in American courts and won, and some of the Iranian assets were frozen. And I don't know if they were ever allocated to the victims, but they won the lawsuit. And one of the things that they used in order to win the lawsuit is, look, Iran has a line item in its budget saying terrorism. So Iran's support for terrorism against Americans is very well documented. It's all over the place. The Kobar Tower, where Americans were killed, the American soldiers were killed in Saudi Arabia. This is before 9/11. I can't remember how many died, many. It was clearly well documented, Iranian intelligence involved in that. What more do you need? The support Iran gave Al-Qaeda, the safe haven they gave Al-Qaeda after 9/11. Many of Al-Qaeda leaders spent time in Iran. The fact that Iranians funded militias all over Iraq during the Iraq, when America was in Iraq still, to kill Americans. The fact that they had bounty on Americans, all well documented. The fact that Iranian militias are still attacking Americans in Iraq and in Syria. So there's a million opportunities. I don't have particularly citations, but Google it, ChatGPT it. I'd be curious to see if you can't find all that evidence. This is not me being a radical or having access to intelligence nobody else has. I would also highly, highly recommend everybody read Leonard Peikoff's statement, full-page ad in the New York Times after 9/11. Right? Right? If you're curious about Muslim immigration, somebody should ask me a super chat question about it. Jennifer says, so glad to see the show. Hope you don't have any more luggage issues. I'm close to the end, so I doubt I'll have any. And I don't check bags unless I'm forced to check the bags. I never check bags. This is why, because I don't want the hassle. Thank you, Jennifer. Really appreciate it. Robin, great talk today. Thank you for signing my books. This Robin, who I met in Maastricht. I really appreciate it. My stepfather came with me, and he really enjoyed it as well. I'm super happy. Thank you, Robin. Thank your stepdad for coming with. God, my mouse here is just playing tricks on me. Okay, Judah. I worry the anti-Semitic genie is out of the bottle, especially in the UK. Do you think it's better to make Aliyah where at least there is a state to protect my rights? Never felt so a threat and don't see it improving now. I worry with you. I think it's a real worry. Whether it justifies Aliyah or not is something you have to decide based on your personal values. But it's certainly good to know that Israel exists, that Israel will never turn against Jews, whether the Jews, Aliyah means going to Israel. It means leaving wherever you live and going to Israel, going to live in Israel. I think it's good that there's a country there that will always protect Jews. Let's hope it's a good country. Let's hope it continues to be a good country. And let's hope it continues to survive, that it does what it's necessary to survive. Oh, God. Huh. All right, let's see if I can make this work. All right, Andrew says, when people present as being objective by seeing both sides of the Middle East argument, they conflate the objective with the subjective as motivated by altruism or worse. There's no equating civilization and barbarism. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, egalitarianism is very prevalent in our culture. And egalitarianism wants everything to be the same. All cultures are the same. All cultures are equal. They're not. Some are good, some are evil. And we should never equate civilization with barbarism. Okay, Farrell. Israel needs to be saved from itself. Ground invasion in Gaza may precipitate a wider conflict. No sane person would take on those risks. Israel is not militarily dominant in the region. USA missile defense is not adequate. I don't agree with any of that. Israel has to be saved from itself because they're stopping the ground invasion. They should invade immediately into Gaza. Israel should preempt the wider conflict by destroying Hezbollah from the air and, if necessary, putting troops on the ground. It should do the same in Syria. This idea that Israel is weak and doesn't know what it's doing and its military can't take this on is just not true and shows an ignorance of the state of the Israeli military and more importantly, the quality and the state of Hezbollah and Hamas. Israel can wipe them out, should wipe them out, do it quickly, effectively, and as quickly as possible. And will some missiles hit Israel, and will some casualties be taken in Israel? Absolutely. But can Israel win this war? Absolutely. And Israel has pretty significant missile defense capabilities, even without the U.S. KFAX, I urge folks to revisit Peikoff's talk. A picture is not an argument. Then observe how people are being taken in by anti-Israeli propaganda. His analysis perfectly describes these people. I agree completely. The non-conceptual, the perceptual level mentality that so dominates people today. Pathetic. Michael, why are some people tolerant of breaches of integrity? I don't know. Because they're weak, because they don't think, because they're immoral, because they think it's unrealistic to expect somebody to stick to their values, to stick to their beliefs. All of those, combination of those. Hiram, in 2019, Yaron, my rabbi told me not to allow converting and being Jewish to get in the way of my job, but nothing could be further from the truth. It has helped, and it is continuing to help tremendously. I don't understand. My rabbi told me not to allow converting and being Jewish to get in the way of my job. Okay, so you converted and became Jewish, but nothing could be further from the truth. It has helped. Helped in what way? I don't understand the question. Sorry, Hiram. Something about the phrasing there I just don't get. Michael, do you think Israel's plan is to push the entire population of Gaza to the south and make northern Gaza a buffer security zone rather than launching an invasion? Or can they not do this without launching an invasion? They can't do it without launching an invasion. I think they have to launch an invasion. The goal is in the north to dismantle the tunnels. The only way for them to actually get to Hamas is to go into the tunnels or to blow them up and destroy them. The only way to save the hostages is to get into the tunnels. To do that, they have to take the north. They have to take control of the tunnel entrances. They have to take control of the tunnels underneath the buildings. They have to block the ability of Hamas to move from the south to the north through those tunnels. You can't do that exclusively from the air. You have to do it also from the ground. And if you want to save any of the hostages, you kind of have to do it from the ground. So Israel has to invade in order to be successful and in order to take the north. It cannot take the north without invading. Can people get shaken out of their altruism during times of crisis? I mean, they might not act particularly altruistic on a given issue during a crisis. But the crisis doesn't shake their altruism out. It just delays it or helps compartmentalize it so that it doesn't affect their ability to function in the time of crisis. Michael, are Islamic movements held together by nationalism or nihilism? It seems like they are elements of both, but I remember you saying nationalism pushed out nihilism. God, I don't know what I said. It's not nationalism, it's tribalism. Whoops, sorry. I've now got my fingers all dirty. All right. There's definitely nihilism there. But with Islamism, I don't think it's nationalism per se, because Islamism is not a nation. It's religiosity. It's a commitment to the religion. It's a commitment to the establishment of the religion over control over all of the entire world. I mean, they take this seriously. They really want to have a caliphate over the entire world. That's why I call them Islamic totalitarianism. They want to use Islam to totally dominate the world. That is what drives them. And that manifests itself, it's combined with nihilism, because in doing that, they don't care about anybody. They don't care about anything. They don't even care about their own people, because it's God's work. So it's the religiosity that is dominant, but the religion is, in a sense, a nihilistic religion, because it wants to destroy all the good in the world, and it wants to see the world burn. And that's the only way they can get into heaven, is if they make the world burn. Michael, are a lot of people in the kibbutz lefties who don't believe in gun ownership and have delusional ideas about peace with these savages? Is that why they were easy targets? No. The kibbutz are typically well-armed, or used to be in my time, well-armed. And while they're full of leftists, these are not naive leftists who are peaceniks. Many of them understand the enemy. No, they were forced to lock up all the guns in an armory, and this was done supposedly to prevent the guns from being used, for being stolen from people's homes. So they locked them up in an armory, but then that meant they had to leave their homes and get to the armory. And once the terrorists made it into their village, they didn't let them get to the army, and they killed them before they got there. These are not people that have any qualms using guns. These are people who are usually serving the special forces in Israel. These are not pacifist leftists. These are pretty militant leftists. And they're quite happy to use guns to defend themselves. The Israeli government prevented them from having the guns necessary to defend themselves. It's the government that disarmed their own people. And again, forced the weapons to be locked away somewhere. And the one kibbutz where this woman kind of early realized what was going on, she managed to get to the armory, open it up, distribute the guns, and get everybody in place. And they killed 30 terrorists. Not a single person in the village got hurt. But that's because she took initiative, and it's because she saw it early. And that's because she had access and could do it. The others were just caught by surprise, weren't ready, and didn't have their arms next to their bed, which is how they would traditionally have had them. And the fact that the Israeli government did this on settlements close to the Gaza border is so mind-boggling, so evil, so horrific, so disgusting. Such a betrayal of its people, that this government should fall. Netanyahu should have resigned the day after this happened. He should have resigned the day after this happened. He is a destructive leader for the state of Israel. Every day he stays on is a little destruction in Israel. He might lose his job at the end of this, and who knows? He is such a political animal, he might somehow survive. He should, if he had any dignity, if he had any integrity, he would resign now. He would have resigned weeks ago, but he doesn't have any of those qualities. Michael says, how can Netanyahu stay in power if he finds a way to call off the invasion? I hope Israel never elects another Yahoo again. Problem everybody says in Israel is there's nobody better than him. I doubt that. I think there are many people who are better than him. I think pretty much anybody's better than him. I don't know how he can stay in power. I don't think he'll call off the invasion. He's just delaying, and weakening the response, making it more difficult. Yeah, anyway. I'm scapegoating. What does that even mean? Who am I scapegoating? Crazy. All right. Silvanos, a co-worker asked me about the Hamas attack on Israel and who Hamas was. I asked him first if he understood the concept of irredeemable evil. He gave me a middle-of-the-road, wishy-washy, shades of gray answer. How do you explain what they can't understand? I don't know. You have to explain what Hamas is. It's a militant Islamist, religious, theocratic, authoritarian regime. Ask him if he wants that in America. Ask him why not, what it would mean, right? What it would mean. And, let him talk about why he wouldn't want it in America. And ask him if he thought that was a bad thing in America. And get him to take a stand on something. And then describe what Hamas actually did to people. And if he thinks that's evil or not, if he thinks that's reasonable, if he thinks reasonable people would do something, I mean, spell it out. Walk him through it. By the way, isn't it interesting that the wall Israel built, the fence, with all the electronics, the latest state of the art, a fence to prevent, didn't work. How many times have I told you fences won't protect us? Andrew, those who appeal to peace in a vacuum are abdicating from thinking and acting on fear. Thoughts on treating peace as a primary. Yeah, I mean, this is the anti-war, this is the left, this is anybody calling for a ceasefire, anybody talking about peace as if it's something that, I don't know, Hamas is just reasonable. I mean, just get them sit down. Just if Israel just compromises a little bit, I'm sure there's a way for peace. Everybody wants peace. It's delusional. It's massively evasive. Peace comes when one side is thoroughly, unequivocally defeated and knows it's defeated, is brought to its knees and succumbs to that defeat and is willing to change its ways as a consequence. That is when peace comes, not a minute earlier. Israel doesn't have peace because it refused to thoroughly defeat the Palestinians. All right, guys. I really appreciate the questions, and we've blown through the $1,000 goal and everything, but I'm losing it a little bit. It's already 12:15 after midnight. I'm noticing that my mind is not there. So no more questions. I'll finish the questions I have. I've got a lot of them. So let me finish these, and then we'll pick up again the next time I do a show. So no more questions, please. Michael says, evil might be impotent at producing and creating, but it is not impotent in persuading men. After World War II, half the world was under communism. Hundreds of millions of people still live under Islamic dictatorship today. Yeah, it is possible to persuade people, but it's incompetent in providing for their subsistence. It is incompetent in terms of actually allowing them to exist in a healthy way. And the reality is that the only reason millions of people live today under Islamic dictatorship is, and you could argue even under communism, was the weakness of the West. It's that the West did not declare, announce, promote, insist on its moral superiority. And that after 9/11, many of these Islamic countries were not destroyed. So it's the weakness of the good. I said no more questions, and Frank comes in with a question. Michael, what do you say, quote, Israel isn't doing anything? Over 1 million Gazans have had to relocate due to heavy Israeli bombing campaign. So they relocate, and tomorrow they'll come back, and they'll get all the money from Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Iran, and they'll rebuild. That's not doing anything. Doing something is putting boots on the ground, occupying the territory, eliminating the tunnels. Every day, this drives me nuts. Every day, Hamas is launching missiles against Israel. That's doing nothing. If they have the capacity to launch missiles, Israel is doing nothing. I don't know what they're bombing. They're bombing targets. They're bombing places. I get it. Not enough. Not enough. Maybe all the weapons are deep inside tunnels. Until you get to the tunnels, until you actually destroy them, until you kill the Hamas in large quantities. Right now, unfortunately, they're killing many civilians. Because the Hamas is in the tunnels, the civilians are not. So absolutely, Israel's doing nothing. In some sense, yeah, doing nothing. Stephen says, have you ever read Beowulf? My takeaway from it is a pro-self-defense moral. Beowulf kills the monster Gretel. Then, upon discovering Gretel has a mother, he doesn't wait for her to come. He goes and kills the mother first. Yeah, good for him. I haven't read Beowulf. But yes, that is pro-self-defense, and that's the right action to take. There are lots of movies that depict this. Real life, not so much. not so much. I think even Game of Thrones has some good illustration of what it means to win. All right, let's do these $10 or less questions. Daily Wire is casting Brett Cooper as their Snow White. So it's casting a man as a Snow White? I don't get that. They should cast Ben Shapiro as one of the 7 dwarfs. Furthermore, I'm of the opinion that Gaza must be destroyed. I'm with you. Destroy it. Jeremy, why did GDP jump to 5% last quarter when a recession is expected? Productivity gains in American business. Can it be an AI-driven productivity gain? There might be some productivity gain from AI. I didn't see the 5% number. That's a pretty astounding number. I didn't see the analysis of it, whether it's productivity. I think the American economy is just humming along in spite of all the darkness, in spite of everything that people say about how awful it is. Partially, it's government stimulus. There's still a lot of government spending. It's the CHIP Act. It's the Inflation Reduction Act. They pump a lot of money into the economy. They create a lot of jobs. They create a lot of factory building. But is it a good use of capital? Does it last for the long run? Is it going to be ultimately result in a bust? So productivity can go up, not productivity, GDP can go up for lots of reasons. And I think government spending is a big reason. We're running a $1.7 trillion deficit this year. So government spending is at all-time highs. That could be driving the GDP. It doesn't have to be productivity. I don't think productivity is rising that fast. I think it's primarily spending. And that is not a good way to grow GDP. Ask the Chinese. Not a good way to grow GDP. Apollo Zeus favorite desserts. Don't really have a favorite dessert. Something not sweet. I don't know. Not sure. Jekyll Stabs. I don't eat dessert. What are the chances of Israel inviting the PLO back to Gaza and sharing security policing rights with like the West Bank? I think there's a high probability. I think it's a mistake. The PLO is bad, not as bad as Hamas, but it's really bad. Israel needs to find somebody else. It needs to help the Palestinians discover a better representation than what they have. And that might take a generation. And in that generation, Israel needs to do the policing. But I'll talk more about a kind of a one-state solution or the solutions to the Palestinian issue on a different show, and then we can answer more questions like that. Apollo Zeus says, immigration, assimilation, and the melting pot. Good things, but how to best facilitate these? Well, a few things. We need to declare war on militant Islam. And if we do that, you don't allow militant Muslims to immigrate. I've never been for open immigration of Muslims. I've been for declaring war on Muslim countries and not allowing Muslims committed to Islamism to immigrate. Always. But my point is that without a war, it's meaningless. So you have to declare it. How do you do it? Integration, assimilation, melting pot. One, you declare without any qualms that your expectation is that they integrate into your civilization and that, by the way, your civilization is better than theirs. Theirs is primitive. That's why they came to yours. So they better abandon their own. And you need to stand up for that. And the government should do that. And we as a culture need to do that. We need to say to them, you want to be Americans? Great. You got to abandon your values. Right? Second, you've got to eradicate multiculturalism from educational institutions. Multiculturalism is what they teach the next generation. What they teach the next generation. When they tell them their culture is just as good as American culture, their culture is just as equal. Why would they give it up? So you've got to expect and demand assimilation. 3, the most assimilating activity that happens, and it happens in America more than it happens in Europe, is work. You've got to allow them to work. No welfare, zero benefits, work, work, work. That will get them assimilated. So it's confidence in your own culture and the projection of that and integrating them through work. Linda says, currently reading Exodus by Leon Uris. Yeah, you should all read Exodus by Leon Uris. Leon Uris is an excellent author for the Israeli, what happened in Israel early on. Michael says, are you going to Israel to give up IDF a prep out? No, I'm not. They haven't invited me. I doubt they'd let me. Scott, Barry Weiss said we'd be fools not to reassess the threat of the left after seeing BLM gleefully using paraglider logos. Does she have a point? Yes, but some people need to reassess the threat of the left. But I've always understood the threat of the left and always talked about the threat of the left. The biggest threat the left has is in destabilizing America to such an extent that the right will form a dictatorship. I continue to think that's true. And the right will be just as anti-Semitic as the left. Indeed, they'll attract a lot of people on the left by their anti-Semitism. Scott, you're implying, as you always do, that I don't think the left is a threat. It is. It's a massive threat. But they will never rule. America will never be socialist. It will never be communist. It will never be ruled by the left's ideology. But they will destroy the country. They are destroying the country. They have destroyed the country. They've destroyed the country over 100 years. There are no anti-Muslim immigration objectivists. The people who pretend to be objectivists, maybe you pretend to be objectivist, but people who hold your views, John, are not objectivists. They're despicable. That's what they are, despicable. It doesn't matter what the left, who's more anti-Semitic. The left right now might be more anti-Semitic, but that doesn't mean anything about the future. Again, you think in 2 dimensions. I, like Donald Trump, think in 4 dimensions. I'm projecting into the future. So right now, the left is more anti-Semitic. That doesn't mean it always will be, and that doesn't mean that the left won't become right. What happened to the communists in Germany? What happened to the rabid left in Germany at the end of the Weimar Republic? They became right. They joined the Nazi Party. So this idea that the left is a left and the right is a right and there's no fluidity is bizarre. The anti-Semitic left will become the anti-Semitic right. Same people. Not all of them. Jacob says anti-Semitism, altruism, or both? Both. Both. They're related. I'll give a talk about the left and anti-Semitism. Not to give a talk. I'll do a show on the left and anti-Semitism. I've got to talk about that. You can find my talk about why anti-capitalism is anti-Semitism and anti-capitalism go together. But basically, it's a talk about why the left is anti-Semitic. I did that talk years ago and resurrected it on occasion. I invented this idea. Not invented it, but why would I debate you, John? I don't debate anti-Semitic scumbags. Go away. Michael says Jews for Palestine is like chickens for KFC. Yeah. It's a meme going around, the chickens for KFC. It's the same as gays for Palestine or gays for Hamas or whatever. Michael says, no amount of evidence will ever persuade an idiot. Yes, you can see that, with John. Michael, does the idea of proportionality in war and in retaliation have its roots in altruism? Yes, very much so. Read my article on just war theory. It explains where proportionality comes from and how it's rooted in altruism. Michael, God, can't do it. What the hood hates most is the one who thinks differently. It is not so much the opinion itself, but the audacity of wanting to think for themselves, something that they do not know how to do. I think that's part of it, yes. Michael, is the biggest asset you have is your mindset? I don't know. I think it's my ability to integrate. I don't know how many of you are seeing John's. I did not back away from, just factually, I did not back down out of the debate from with Poggio. I had no involvement in that debate. That debate was Amy Peikoff. She decided not to have it because Poggio would not agree to basic rules of a civilized debate. So she decided not to have it. I had no say in whether the debate would happen or not. He was going to act like an uncivilized beast, and she decided she did not want to host a debate that had such a person. Good for her. But yeah, and that is only being justified further by Poggio's just ugliness. Since then, I wouldn't debate him. I wouldn't get on a stage with him. I wouldn't want to be in the same room with him. And he's not an objectivist, and he's certainly not worthy of my attention. I'm just saying it because John is again lying, and I just want to make sure that the lies are corrected, that they don't just live on because I stay silent. Gregory, agreeing with your articulate and accurate comments. I appreciate that, Gregory. Michael, peace at any price does not bring peace. It only increases the price. Nice way of putting it. Mystery meat. Growing up in the UK, I never saw any job. Now it's everywhere. Middle Eastern extreme Islam is spread across the West in mosques and universities. Yes, because we refuse to identify it and refuse to go to war against it. Refuse to go to war against it. You said in your talk, war is a negation of rules, but there are some rules in a proper war, like you can't shoot prisoners. Why not? If victory demands that you shoot prisoners, shoot prisoners. There are no wars in war. There are no rules in that kind of rules. The only rule in war is to effectively achieve victory while minimizing, long-term victory, while minimizing the cost to your own troops. Anything that's a distraction of victory should not be done. But if, let's say, you could create a scenario where shooting prisoners was required in order to achieve victory, you shoot prisoners. So, no, I'm serious about this. The whole essence of war is the negation of rules. It's the most barbaric thing human beings can do. It's the most anti-rules things human being can do. You want to place rules on barbarism? Come on. How can we convey truth to deeply indoctrinated souls? Maybe we can't and just have to reach the next generation, mostly the next generation. How do you make objectivism real to you when everyone around you is so undermining and corrupting? You live your life. You use your mind. You figure out things for yourself. You think for yourself, and you have to have courage to act in the world in spite of people's oppositions. Frank says, I saw an article in the Times of Israel that said Bibi propped up Hamas. Is that true? Can you explain? I don't know exactly what they were talking about, but yes, he basically, his government has provided them with water and with electricity and with food. He, several times when they've attacked Israel, refused to dismantle them, refused to go in and fight them. He has periodically fought pathetic, weak wars that have basically bolstered them, basically given them further life. So his weak treatment of Hamas has basically propped them up, but also it's true that he allowed them to get weapons, allowed them to get money, and basically continued to supply them with electricity, food, and everything else. All right, guys, thank you. I mean, you guys were very generous. It's already almost 1 a.m. here in Brussels. I am going to sleep. I've got a morning flight to London, and I have to be ready for my debate on the NHS tomorrow. So thank you for all the support. Really, really appreciate it. Don't pay attention to all the losers on the chat. And I will see you. I don't know if I'll do a show tomorrow or Saturday or Sunday. I will try. I try to do as many of these as I can while I travel. Again, thank you for the support. Thank you for being so generous and coming through. And I'll see you soon. I'll see you soon. And hopefully we'll have some good news next time I see you. Bye, everybody.